Okay, gonna try this again. Last video was 15 minutes long. Don't want to spend that long on this concept. So, Lego 2024 City Space Sets. The overarching theme throughout, besides the airlock system that they introduced last year, is this. These little iridescent crystals that they've been mining for power, basically. They're in practically every set, and every set that has these will rely on batteries that are drawn from those crystals, right? So, every space set that's not Lego Technic, every space set has those batteries. The batteries power the vehicles in universe. That's all you need to know about that. My question is, what exactly is the standard charge of these things? So the smallest battery that I've been able to find is one of these, and that powers this little robot dude. He's got one right there on his back, and that's it. That's the smallest unit of battery power I've seen on these things. So for something that is in universe slightly taller than a human, it's bigger than a minifig, this thing requires one of these. I don't know if they recharge them or not. It doesn't come with multiple, so I'm guessing not. So one of those is enough to power a walking Alexa for however long they need. And I don't think that there's a way to charge it in universe. So yeah, let's just say that one of these will charge a walking Alexa. Next up from that, we have the single cell battery that is used for a lot of the other drones in the set. I happen to have two. So one of them is this little aerial drone. Battery attaches right there between the thrusters. And this functions as a jetpack for the pilot class minifigures. So, sorry about that. So the pilot class minifigures have a backpack with a single stud that attaches there. Fly away. So in order to get lift off the ground, it needs a little bit more power. So for a personal jetpack, that's how much it costs. Walking Alexa, personal jetpack. Still with me so far? Okay, good. I want to try to breeze through this because I've already had this conversation. Next up, mining robot. A little bit small, a little bit chunky, similar in size to the walking Roomba or the walking Alexa, but it's got one of these single cylinder batteries, which, you know, considering how it's got power tools, you know, going into rough terrain, you're going to need a lot more power to get something through that has to cut through crystals and diamonds or whatever. Understandable. You know, jetpack, unmanned mining vehicle, use the single cell. Walking Roomba or walking Alexa, micro battery. Here's where it gets interesting. There is one other instance of a battery that is not the single cell, but it's not the next level up. It is a double use of the single cell for the mining mech. So, you know, it's gonna take a lot more power to power something this big compared to the size of a standard person, obviously. It's also got heavy industrial tools to it. So, you know, the double kind of starts to make sense. You know, two of the, you know, if you think about this is enough to get you off the air and possibly even into space. This is enough to cut through diamond hard rock. You put them together, kind of makes sense. Already 4 minutes onto this thing. Okay. Whenever you take two of those cylinders and put them together, though, you get the standard efficient battery, is what I'm calling it. Takes two of these cylinders, simple jumper plates, and that's usually is going to be what powers everything else. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This powers almost literally everything else, from everywhere down the line. So let's say you have one of these little modules right here. So you got scooters of various sizes. This one's the one that's wheelchair accessible, but they do have two others in the series. One that came with the satellite set and one that came in a poly bag. But all three of them are able to dock into a system like this, and that has that simple double battery, right? So considering how these probably will be docking and recharging routinely, kind of makes sense. You know, you got one that just kind of parks there, charges up, and when it goes, another one comes and parks. So this is good for multiple use on this system. Makes sense, right? Double battery makes sense. Another way that you can use the double battery is in the standard small rocket. And this is from the 4-up set, and basically looks like it would be able to get to and from on planet, maybe get up in upper atmosphere. But that just has a simple spot for the double battery, enough to power a lot of thrust from this thing, get it out of atmosphere, right? Another thing you can use the double battery for is for these modules. Now, each interior is going to be different, but most of them that I've seen have a spot. Anything that's powered, at least. I don't think the greenhouse one has one, but it has a spot where if you put a battery there, the double one will power it, the single one will power it, and even, if I can get my big fingers in there, the basic tiny one will power it. Fine, you know, depending on how much energy output you want these to have, makes sense. Already 7 minutes. Got to move faster. Here's where I'm starting to have issues. This is an intergalactic spaceship. Intergalactic, meaning this modified, grant you, double efficient battery, which just plugs in right there, is enough to power a hyperdrive. Suspension of disbelief, sure, but it's starting to get a little bit iffy. Moving up from that, you have an entire base station. So an entire base unit, which is comprised of, opening it up, a lab, which you can argue that battery's powering the lab, but given everything that's on the readouts, I'm guessing that it's just filling up a battery with there. A hot water system, a kitchenette, ESPN, an atmospheric airlock, if I can get my fingers back there, multiple communications readouts, and the front door, all powered by a standard double. Sure, if it can power an intergalactic spaceship, why not? Question is if a standard double can power an intergalactic spaceship, how long is this going to run? How long is this going to run? How efficient is this thing? You know what I'm saying? It's starting to get a little bit questionable. And there's other things as well, like the 6-wheeled vehicle set, which is a bit more, heftier in size than this, takes 2 of these. I didn't think that 6-wheel drive is more energy taxing than a hyperdrive, but I guess that's the case. And similar with a lot of the other sets, any of the smaller modules, a lot of the smaller modules that are powered by the double, I get that. My biggest question is when there's a set that requires so much energy output. Here, I'm just going to show it to you. This thing, which came with this module, this 8-wheel drive with a small crane, lots of lights, granted, and there's a few things that are in here. There's a pilot station, navigation. If you look on the sides, there's like little communication points, as well as the lab that's in the back. You can say all that's being powered at the same time. This big Mass Effect looking vehicle requires not 1, but 2 of these quad batteries. That is literally 8 times as much power as is being used by the hyperdrive. My question is, if this, let's say that this is the standard operating unit, right? The double cell operates a hyperdrive, which means that this is going to run for a lot longer, considering how it doesn't have to do as much and it's much smaller. This is going to be able to recharge a lot of space scooters for a long time. These little robots are basically going to be immortal. This guy, you know, may have a shelf life of like 30, 40 years before he needs to recharge. How much power is this thing? Like, why is this necessary? Is one of them like redundant or something? And I even thought like, okay, maybe they're, maybe the whole point of like whatever it is that it's, you know, transporting these batteries to plug into a bigger base or something like that. But the big base, I don't happen to have that one. The big base doesn't even have a spot for these. The big base has a spot for the standard double. Now, granted, the big ground base with the crane and the communications tower, they have in universe a different type of battery that uses the standard crystal as well as like some organic component that hybridizes the batteries, makes them more efficient. I don't know what. That's all well and good. But like, how much power does this thing need that it requires 2 of these? This video is already 12 minutes long, and I've already gone past what I wanted to do with this rant anyway, but just, I can't be the only one that's thinking this, right? Like, that seems overkill. Sorry for taking up so much of your time.